Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, outsiders and in-betweeners. My name is Cameron Harris, and I am running for Mayor of Chicago in the 2027 election cycle. This afternoon, we will be having beef stroganoff and some broccoli. One thing that I have been watching on YouTube recently is videos by a man named Matt Shue. Now that the Taliban government of Afghanistan is allowing travelers and aid workers into the country, Matt Shue went there to somewhat take a tour of the countryside. And along his journey, two active Taliban members joined him. And I saw a lot of very interesting things happen throughout that video. Before I get to those things, I want to mention that if there are any foreign aid advisors or charity organizations watching this video, the Taliban children are in desperate, truly desperate need of dental procedures. Throughout Matt Shue's multiple videos and the multiple other YouTubers that I watched, I got extremely focused on looking inside people's mouths because in the state Afghanistan is currently in, it is obvious that dental hygiene is an incredibly individual experience because there is no dentist for people to go to get routine cleanings or checkups. And so I started looking in the mouths of the children because they're short enough that when the camera points down, you can see straight into their mouths. And I endeavor to not curse on this show, but those children have some seriously fucked up teeth. And get them some help. But once the two Taliban members joined Matt Shue on his journey through Afghanistan, it became really obvious the levels of social stratification that were going on within Afghanistan, because throughout the video, it felt like you had journeyed back to the 15th century, except people had cars and scooters. Again, with people's dental hygiene and the obvious social stratification, it was so easy to pick out members of the Taliban or the secret police, the constabulary, that were hidden among the crowd, because you guys really stick out a lot. You guys are ever so subtly different than everyone else around you. The hats the Taliban members are wearing are not common when you start looking at the other men in the video. That jeweled hat that they wear, you can literally count the number of people on two hands throughout dozens of videos that are wearing those same hats. And so that must be a sign of wealth, a class status symbol. And then I started looking at physically how the Taliban members were dressed. And then I noticed that no one else in the dozens of videos had brocade on their clothing, except for Taliban members. And then I looked at the colors the Taliban members were wearing, and they were ever so slightly different than everyone else. Everyone else was wearing brown, black, white, tan, and blue, but Taliban members were wearing just ever so slightly different shades of brown and black. And so you could tell who was in the system. It was like watching 15th century politics play out, where you could pick out the king's men, the king's knights amongst the crowd, and you knew who to avoid. I also noticed that the Taliban members speak African American vernacular English, which means that they have a near unlimited access to the internet, which is incredibly interesting because the Taliban members knew what a BBL was. And that is interesting. I've also gotten into my mind that it says something about like our black culture that like the Taliban speaks the same as us. like they're learning our language through the internet. And so to me, it seems more like a stumbling block of language rather than like how people are speaking. And another thing I noticed when reading through the comments, a lot of videos, especially when Matt Shu was invited into the home of the Taliban member and had dinner with him, that when the topic of women came up, a lot of people in the comments were talking uh, about if like it was about like the Taliban members like mothers and sisters, about like if you would treat like your family like that, and it's like yes, like because when you're a child, your parents don't let you go outside alone. Like when you're an 8-year old, your parents don't let you just like mindlessly wander the streets. And it's not because they're like controlling your life, it literally comes from a place of love. Like they don't want you to be exposed to danger or hurt without their notice, and so they don't let you outside alone. And that's literally the same lens the Taliban men view their wives, mothers, and sisters through. That when these men were young, their families held them close, and now that they're older, it is their responsibility to hold their family, the women, just as close as they were held as children. And so, to them, keeping them in the family compound is not a caged bird situation. It's a place of love in the same way your parents didn't let you outside alone. Oh, and I still turned the oven on the wrong way. Here we go. I wanted the convection. Like, truly, so many fascinating things happen. And you could also tell, like, the class of other members of the Afghan society because the only other people I noticed that had, like, brocading on their clothing were money changers. And that is also an extremely lucrative money-based job. So like again, the brocade clothing and the jeweled hats are like status symbols, and this is so fascinating. But one thing that did completely floor me was looking around at like the plants in people's gardens. And I would like to take this moment to shout out the manager of the Christian cemetery in Kabul, I think it was. Can someone please get him some water? Because I was looking around the cemetery and I saw all of the marigold plants that he had planted, like in his box window and like around the cemetery. And they are dying, not because they're not taken care of properly, but because he obviously cannot get them enough fresh water. Can someone please help him with that? Like, I was truly floored with how many like beautiful plants I saw because I did not know that like geraniums were native to Afghanistan. I knew they were like native to somewhere in Southeast Asia, but like I was completely floored when I saw people's geraniums. Like they were like 3 feet tall. I have like buckets and buckets of geraniums out. I'm gonna go get one. I gotta show you guys now. Okay, here we are. Yeah, again, these are Milo geraniums. I've got like buckets of these out on the porch, and I had no idea they could even physically get that big. I'll put it back outside in a minute. Because, here in northern Illinois, we get like routinely cold days where I guess I'm blocking it again. But we get like routinely cold days where it gets to like sub freezing temperatures. And so if you leave your geraniums, my geraniums, outside during the winter, they just die. And so seeing them get that big made me like incredibly jealous. Because I had no idea that they look like that in the water, naturally, rather. And to circle back on the logical fallacy that a lot of people accidentally trip themselves into, like the Taliban, is that to the Western perspective, we don't view how you hold your women close as love because in Western civilization, we have a saying where if you love something, you should let it go. And if it loves you, it'll come back. And so for our feelings, it's that you are too concerned. Like to us, we are confused at how you treat your women because why do you care so much, in essence? Like if she loves you, she'll always come back to you. And if you love her, she'll always have a home to come back to. And so there's no reason to hold her so closely.